The Earth, as we know it today, is the product of billions of years of slow transformation, an intricate dance of geology, climate, and life itself. Imagine for a moment the vast stretches of time that preceded oceans where continents drifted, oceans surged and receded, and life in its earliest forms experimented, struggled, and thrived in ways both familiar and utterly alien. If we were to compress the history of our planet into a single year, humans would appear only in the final hour, and before that, dinosaurs, plants, and even the first traces of life had already shaped the stage for what was to come. Our understanding of this immense timeline comes from the careful work of geologists, paleontologists, and archaeologists. By examining layers of rock, patterns of erosion, and the fossilized remains of creatures long vanished, we piece together a story that stretches back billions of years. Fossils tell us of creatures with spines and without, of forests that once covered continents that now lie bare. Ice cores preserve whispers of ancient climates, while volcanic ash captures snapshots of catastrophic events that reshaped landscapes, and perhaps even life itself. Yet, for all our knowledge, there remains an overwhelming shadow of uncertainty. Fossilization is rare, and most organisms leave no trace at all. The story we tell is one of what survived long enough, and in the right conditions, to be preserved. Vast stretches of time remain almost entirely blank, their secrets locked beneath layers of rock or hidden in ocean depths we have barely explored. Our archaeological lens is tuned to detect stone tools, pottery shards, and metal objects, but what if past intelligence did not leave such evidence? What if civilizations, advanced beyond our imagining, rose and fell long before humans? The gaps in our understanding may be far wider than we dare to acknowledge. Consider the timeline of human evolution itself. Homo sapiens, our own species, has existed for roughly 300,000 years, but our earliest signs of culture, art, tool-making, and social structures emerge much later. Even these early signs are sparse, fragile, and easily lost. For thousands of generations, humans lived without leaving anything recognizable to future eyes. Now imagine a civilization that might have existed even earlier, perhaps hundreds of thousands of years before our species fully emerged. If such a society were here, the traces they left could have been subtle, ephemeral, and almost entirely erased by the relentless forces of nature. The geological record itself is a puzzle. Layers of sediment, rock, and ice serve as archives, yet they are incomplete and often difficult to interpret. A fossilized tree tells a story of ancient climate and ecosystem, but not necessarily of the intelligence that observed it or interacted with it. A stone tool hints at innovation, but a tool made of organic materials, or a building constructed entirely from plant-based composites, might vanish entirely within a few centuries. Our timeline is inherently biased toward durability. Metals, stone, ceramics, everything else, everything that decays, disappears, and returns to the earth, becomes invisible over the span of millennia. And yet, even in these sparse records, we find moments of wonder. Early humans coexisted with other hominins, adapting, surviving, and exploring the world around them. Fossils of Neanderthals and Denisovans reveal the complexity of life before us, and the very DNA we carry today tells stories of encounters, migrations, and intermingling that were otherwise lost. The Earth has been home to countless forms of life, some of which thrived in ways that might rival the accomplishments of modern humans. If only we knew how to read their stories. It is here, in the vast stretches between known fossils and recorded history, that our curiosity must wander. We map what we can see: the continents, the oceans, the ice ages, but beyond our vision lies the unimaginable. Could there have been intelligence before humans? Could complex life have shaped the land and environment in ways invisible to our eyes? If we allow ourselves to imagine the possibilities, the Earth becomes a stage for untold stories. Civilizations that may have risen, thrived, and vanished without leaving the types of evidence we are trained to expect to visualize. For a moment, the layers of sediment as a book. Each layer is a chapter, but many chapters are missing, torn, or erased by the passing of time. Fossils are the words we can read, rocks are the punctuation, and in the missing pages, perhaps entire civilizations remain hidden. Our current understanding of Earth is vast in scope yet narrow in focus. We see the rise of dinosaurs, the age of mammals, and the dawn of human civilizations, but the deep stretches of prehistory, the hundreds of thousands of years, where little to no record survives, remain almost entirely uncharted. It is in the shadowed expanse that the imagination begins to stir, asking questions our instruments cannot yet answer. What if the Earth has hosted intelligence before us? What forms might it have taken? And how could it have disappeared without a trace, leaving only subtle clues buried deep beneath the Earth? By exploring the known history of our planet in this way, we recognize both the brilliance and the fragility of life. We understand the milestones we have uncovered, yet we are humbled by the vast unknown. The story of Earth is far more expansive than the brief chapter in which humanity now lives. And as we gaze into the layers of rock and fossil, we are reminded that time is not linear, but layered, full of gaps and spaces that might conceal worlds we have yet to imagine. If we pause for a moment and consider the vast stretches of time before humanity, a question emerges almost inevitably. Could there have been another civilization, intelligent and advanced, long before humans or even the dinosaurs walked the Earth? It is a question that borders on impossible to prove, yet impossible to dismiss entirely when we confront the enormity of deep time. Our conventional understanding of history assumes that intelligence, complex societies, and technology are recent phenomena. We look to the past for stone tools, pottery shards, and monumental architecture, assuming that anything worthy of the title civilization must leave such traces behind. But what if this assumption is itself a limitation of our perception? What if an ancient society developed along an entirely different path, leaving evidence that is subtle, organic, or entirely invisible to our current methods of detection? Imagine a civilization that did not build with stone or metals, did not carve monuments into mountains, and did not create machines that would leave permanent marks in the soil. Instead, imagine a society that lived in harmony with the land, building structures from living plants, weaving organic materials into their homes, and embedding their knowledge into crops, forests, and biological systems. To an archaeologist trained to look for durable artifacts, such a civilization would almost vanish without a trace. The very qualities that made it advanced, its sustainability, its integration with nature, would make it invisible over the course of tens of thousands of years. Consider the idea of invisibility in more depth. Civilizations, as we define them, are measured by their physical footprint, cities, roads, monuments, and artifacts. But a society focused on stability, on self-sufficiency, or on biological and intellectual mastery might deliberately avoid creating anything that survives for millennia. Its knowledge might have been carried in the memory of its people, in oral traditions, or even encoded within its own biology. And as centuries passed, these traces could fade, leaving only subtle anomalies in the landscape, patterns of soil composition, unusual plant distributions, or fossilized remnants that we might misinterpret as natural phenomena. We already know that history is often written by what survives, not by what existed. Our understanding of the past is filtered through the lens of preservation. Stone endures, but wood rots. Metal corrodes, but some plastics and organic compounds disintegrate entirely. What if an advanced civilization had mastered materials specifically designed to disappear after use? Biodegradable, self-recycling, leaving the Earth nearly untouched. Could it be that the Earth itself has already hosted intelligence beyond our comprehension, but its evidence is hidden in forms we do not yet recognize? The invisibility factor extends even to energy and technology. Our civilization relies on fuels, electricity, and infrastructure that leave geological and environmental marks for future archaeologists to find. But what if energy was drawn from subtle, renewable sources, geothermal heat, photosynthetic systems, biological energy storage, or transmitted through living networks integrated into the environment? Such a society could thrive for millennia without creating the kind of physical traces we now associate with progress. To the untrained eye, forests and rivers would appear entirely natural, masking the intricate systems that sustained life and knowledge. Let us also consider the timeline. Human history, even at its earliest, is a fraction of the Earth's age. If we expand our imagination to 100,000 years or even further, the chances for evidence to survive diminish exponentially. Erosion, tectonic shifts, glacial movements, and volcanic activity are relentless forces, capable of erasing entire continents' worth of structures over geological timescales. Even a civilization that lasted thousands of years could vanish entirely, leaving only whispers of its existence in the geological record. Visualize, for a moment, a forest growing over an abandoned city. Rivers reclaim the land, plants entwine structures once carefully crafted, and the earth slowly reclaims its own. What remains would look natural to us, yet beneath the soil, in the composition of the land, subtle anomalies might hint at something once extraordinary. Could we recognize it? Or would we simply write it off as a coincidence, a quirk of nature? oblivious to the intelligence that once shaped it. And yet, the question persists, why even consider the possibility? Because the gaps in our knowledge are vast, and because imagination is a tool that allows us to perceive possibilities beyond the narrow lens of preserved evidence. By asking, what if, we open a door to scenarios that challenge our assumptions. We begin to see that intelligence might not be unique to our species, and that progress is not necessarily linear or permanent. Perhaps civilizations have risen and fallen countless times before us, leaving minimal evidence, yet leaving lessons encoded in the planet itself, lessons we have yet to learn how to read. In asking this question, we step beyond mere curiosity. We confront our own biases about what constitutes civilization, what survives, and what is important. We acknowledge that our definition is shaped by what we can detect, by what has persisted, and by the framework of our own experience. And in doing so, we open our minds to the possibility that the Earth may have witnessed feats of intelligence, culture, and technology that have left nearly no trace, civilizations that lived, thrived, and disappeared in ways we are only beginning to imagine. Now, let us stretch our imagination even further and attempt to picture the life of a civilization that might have existed long before humans or dinosaurs, a civilization that advanced, not through the durability of stone and metal, but through ingenuity that was fleeting yet profound. Imagine a society whose homes were alive, grown from interwoven plant fibers and engineered trees, structures that could adapt, heal, and even move with the seasons. Their cities might have been forests themselves, with pathways carved through living canopies, and buildings that blossomed in harmony with the environment rather than imposing upon it. Visualize tools crafted from materials stronger than any steel, yet entirely biodegradable. Perhaps they used polymers derived from organic compounds that could perform remarkable functions, yet vanish without leaving a trace. Every creation was designed with impermanence in mind, a reflection not of limitation, but of a philosophy that valued the balance with nature, above the permanence of artifacts. Such technology would be invisible to archaeologists today, perfectly suited for a civilization that never sought to outlast its own environment, but to exist symbiotically within it. Their energy systems, too, might have been beyond our comprehension. Imagine drawing power directly from geothermal vents, sunlight stored and released by engineered plant systems, or even energy flowing through networks embedded in the natural world. No sprawling grids, no smokestacks, no fuel depots, just subtle, renewable sources sustaining a civilization that left almost no signature upon the earth. Perhaps they had mastered ways to convert sunlight, water, or even the chemical processes within living organisms into usable power, creating a system as seamless and integrated as a river nourishing the land. Consider their society. Unlike our cities, which expand relentlessly, consuming land and resources, this civilization might have chosen stability over sprawl. Small, self-sufficient communities could thrive without centralized authority or monumental construction. Knowledge might have been passed orally, encoded biologically, or stored in the careful cultivation of crops and forests. Their achievements might have been intellectual and environmental rather than architectural, mastering ecosystems, perfecting genetics, or creating medicines and techniques that allowed their people to flourish in harmony with the earth. Transportation and communication would have been equally extraordinary, without the need for roads, bridges, or vehicles that leave permanent marks. Perhaps they traveled by sea in biodegradable vessels, or moved along natural pathways integrated into their forests and rivers. Communication could have occurred through biological networks, subtle chemical signals, or even direct neural interfaces. To a modern observer, their methods would seem invisible, magical, or untraceable. Yet for them, these were practical, advanced, and highly efficient systems, perfectly suited to the rhythms of the planet. Imagine the sights of their daily life: luminous bioluminescent plants lighting pathways at night, structures that sway gently with the wind, entire communities embedded within living forests, and fields of crops engineered to store energy or heal the soil. Knowledge is shared not in books or digital files, but encoded in the growth patterns of trees, in the genetic memory of crops, or in oral traditions passed down meticulously. To walk through such a city would be to witness intelligence and technology in a form entirely inseparable from the natural world of fusion of life and mind, of innovation and ecology. Even their achievements in science and medicine might be subtle, yet profound. Imagine a species that could manipulate genes to enhance longevity, health, or adaptability, or develop cures hidden within natural compounds, all without leaving a laboratory behind. Their understanding of physics, chemistry, and biology could have been far ahead of ours, yet expressed in ways that left no enduring artifact. And yet, this society could have existed for thousands, perhaps tens of thousands of years, quietly and invisibly. The more we imagine their sophistication, the easier it becomes to believe that a civilization could rise and flourish without leaving behind the monumental ruins we expect. The Earth itself would appear undisturbed, but beneath the canopy, in the subtle balance of ecosystems and the carefully engineered biology, the fingerprints of intelligence would remain hidden, delicate, almost imperceptible. Could it be that civilizations like this have existed, and that their mastery of life, energy, and knowledge was profound, yet designed to vanish without a trace? By allowing ourselves to explore this possibility, we challenge not only our understanding of what civilization is, but also the narrow lens through which we search for the past. What we see as empty wilderness might have been vibrant with innovation. What we dismiss as natural processes might conceal careful design. And what we call lost may have simply left behind forms of intelligence that we have yet to recognize. Even the most advanced civilizations are fragile. Imagine a society that had mastered life itself, sculpted its environment, and harmonized with nature, but all of it could be undone by a single catastrophic event. Consider climate change, sudden drops or rises in temperature, shifts in rainfall patterns, or the encroachment of ice and sea could devastate communities built on stability. Cities that thrived for centuries might collapse overnight if crops failed or rivers changed course. Flooded lowlands could wash away entire settlements. Forests could reclaim villages in the span of a few generations. Now imagine a cosmic catastrophe, a meteor or comet impact large enough to blanket the skies with dust, triggering years of famine. Tsunamis sweep across coastlines, wildfires scorch vast regions, and atmospheric debris blocks sunlight. Even the most resilient communities, equipped with advanced knowledge and technology, could see their world unravel. Volcanoes, too, could play a role. Massive eruptions spreading ash across continents, cooling climates, and choking life from every corner. History has shown us that even human populations are at the mercy of such events. And for a civilization 100,000 years ago, the stakes would have been no less severe. Self-destruct is another possible path. A society with powerful tools capable of manipulating energy, materials, or biology could falter under misuse, overexploitation of resources, environmental degradation, or internal conflicts might lead to a gradual or sudden collapse. Even a population that lived in balance with its environment could be undone by accidents or unforeseen consequences, the very sophistication that sustained them becoming the source of their downfall. The time gap problem further deepens the mystery. 100,000 years is not just a long time. It is an eternity in which memory, culture, and physical evidence can vanish completely. Our oldest written records barely scrape the surface of human history, and even stone structures crumble under the relentless forces of erosion, tectonics, and decay. Wooden, organic, or biodegradable materials would disappear almost entirely, leaving behind only subtle hints, easily mistaken for natural formations. In a few millennia, forests would grow over streets, rivers would carve new paths, and coastlines would shift, erasing the geography of a civilization. Even if survivors remained, their descendants might integrate into simpler ways of life. Skills and knowledge, once carefully cultivated over centuries, could be lost within generations. Stories of ancient mastery might fade into myth, distorted by retelling or forgotten entirely. What we consider a blank or uninhabited land could have been the cradle of extraordinary intelligence, long erased by time and circumstance. Disease, too, could decimate populations unexpectedly. A virulent epidemic spreading through a connected community could annihilate the majority of the population, taking with it the accumulated knowledge of countless generations. Tools would be abandoned, dwellings left to collapse, and entire systems of energy, agriculture, or governance dismantled in months. The civilization would vanish quietly, leaving no monuments, no records, and no unmistakable trace of its existence. Even gradual disappearance would suffice to render a civilization invisible to modern eyes. Migration, cultural blending, or slow technological abandonment could erase identity over centuries. Knowledge might persist in fragments, scattered across regions or absorbed into emerging societies. But the context, the understanding of who they were and what they achieved would be lost. The Earth itself, ever-changing and dynamic, would reclaim every structure, every artifact, every mark of their presence. Imagine the visual scene. Misty landscapes once teeming with structured communities, now overtaken by dense forests. Rivers meander through abandoned plains where streets once guided travelers. Hills hide the subtle rise and fall of former dwellings, crumbling under centuries of wind and rain. Ash clouds from long-forgotten eruptions settle into sediment layers, erasing evidence. Even the sky seems unchanged, masking the stories of civilizations that lived and died before humans, leaving only shadows in memory and imagination. This is the paradox of ancient advanced societies. They could exist, flourish, innovate, and vanish entirely, leaving nothing recognizable for us to uncover. Their disappearance could be abrupt, catastrophic, or gradual, but in all scenarios, time itself becomes the eraser, rendering entire civilizations almost invisible to the archaeologist's eye. And in the absence of monumental ruins, metallic tools, or enduring constructions, we might never know they were there at all. Even if every structure, every tool, every monument of an ancient civilization had vanished, there is one record that could endure: DNA. Our own bodies might carry whispers of societies long gone, invisible to the eye, yet encoded in the very molecules that define life. Imagine a civilization 100,000 years ago, advanced, intelligent, and deeply intertwined with its environment. Even if their cities and technology disappeared without a trace, their biological legacy might persist quietly in us today. We already know that human genetics preserves echoes of the past. Modern populations outside Africa carry about 1 to 2% Neanderthal DNA, remnants of interbreeding tens of thousands of years ago. Certain groups in Asia and Oceania carry traces of Denisovan ancestry. These fragments are silent witnesses to encounters between humans and other hominins, proof that history leaves its mark, even when physical evidence is scarce. Now imagine if another, even more advanced group existed during this time. Could fragments of their DNA still be present, scattered across billions of people? Could the blueprint of lost intelligence survive hidden in our genes? Consider the possibilities. These ancient beings might have been Homo sapiens, a closely related species, or even an entirely unknown branch of hominins. If they survived long enough to interbreed with emerging human populations, their genetic material could blend with ours, leaving only faint traces, tiny fragments that are difficult to distinguish from normal variation. Yet, within these fragments could lie genes that once guided extraordinary capabilities, advanced cognition, adaptation, or even subtle biological technologies now long forgotten. Of course, detecting such a genetic legacy is immensely challenging. Over tens of thousands of years, DNA from a small group can dilute into the wider gene pool, scattered so thinly that its origin becomes almost impossible to trace. Even sophisticated modern genomics might identify anomalies or unknown sequences, without any way to connect them to a lost civilization or its achievements. Genetics can confirm the presence of populations, but it cannot directly reveal the extent of their knowledge, culture, or technology. Yet the very possibility is tantalizing. Imagine discovering evidence that a small, advanced population once thrived, survived cataclysmic events, and passed on fragments of their legacy biologically. Even without cities or artifacts, the knowledge of their existence could emerge in subtle ways, through unusual genetic patterns, unexpected adaptations, or traits we cannot yet explain. Perhaps some of our intuition, resilience, or ingenuity carries faint echoes of ancestors whose civilization was far older than we ever imagined. Visualize it: microscopic spirals of DNA twisting and interweaving, a hidden map of life carrying ancient secrets, threads of ancestry crossing continents, invisible connections linking modern humans to a world lost to time. Each cell, each gene, a silent testament to the possibility of intelligence that existed long before recorded history. Even without monuments, their presence persists, waiting for us to decode it. The genetic legacy raises profound questions. What could we learn if we uncovered more than 1 to 2% of our DNA that hints at a forgotten civilization? Could it challenge our understanding of human evolution, of intelligence, of the limits of cultural and technological development? Could the clues within our own biology be the bridge to a past that no stone or tool could preserve? In this light, the absence of physical evidence becomes less definitive. Even when archaeology finds nothing, genetics reminds us that life itself can hold the memory of civilizations. Perhaps the traces of 100,000-year-old advanced societies are not buried in ruins, but quietly encoded in our cells, carried forward in every heartbeat and breath. If we were to discover undeniable proof that an advanced civilization existed 100,000 years ago, the very foundation of our understanding of human history would shift. This would not be a simple addition to the timeline, it would rewrite the narrative entirely. Currently, we view technological advancement, complex societies, and monumental architecture as hallmarks of a recent past, emerging largely within the last 10,000 years. To find evidence of an intelligence capable of sophisticated thought, culture, and perhaps technology far earlier would challenge the assumption that progress is linear or uniquely modern. Imagine the philosophical ripple effects. Humanity has long held a sense of uniqueness, a belief that we are the pinnacle of evolution and the creators of civilization as we know it. If others came before us intelligent, creative, capable, yet ultimately lost to time, it would humble that perspective. We would see ourselves not as the inevitable heirs of progress, but as participants in a much longer, more intricate story. Perhaps the rise and fall of civilizations is not a failure of humanity, but an inherent pattern of life on Earth. Growth and collapse, innovation and loss, might be recurring rhythms rather than anomalies. The implications for science and anthropology would be profound. We would need to reconsider the resilience and fragility of complex societies. History might not be a continuous climb, but a series of peaks and valleys. Civilizations emerging, flourishing, and disappearing, leaving fragments biological, geological, cultural waiting to be interpreted. The study of human evolution would gain a new dimension. If such a civilization were Homo sapiens, it would demonstrate our species' potential far earlier than assumed. If it were a different hominin, intelligence would appear less species-specific, revealing that complex thought and societal organization can emerge in parallel across different branches of life. Cultural and religious frameworks would also confront extraordinary questions. Many narratives assume a linear, human-centered progression from simplicity to complexity, learning that others achieved remarkable feats long before humans could prompt a re-evaluation of myths, stories, and beliefs about our origins. Imagine ancient legends, possibly rooted in forgotten memories, gaining new resonance as echoes of a civilization we once overlooked. Popular fascination with lost worlds, like Atlantis or Lemuria, would no longer be merely mythical. It could hold a grain of historical truth, inspiring both public curiosity and serious academic inquiry. Politically and socially, the discovery would provoke intense interest. Any artifact, technology, or material unrecognized by modern science could become the focus of global attention. Governments, institutions, and private entities might vie for control of knowledge that could reshape energy systems, biotechnology, or environmental management. The mere suggestion of an advanced, forgotten civilization would force a dialogue about humanity's place in the continuum of time, the responsibilities of discovery, and the ethics of knowledge we cannot fully understand. This reflection extends beyond academia and politics. It touches the human spirit. Knowing that intelligence and creativity have flickered across the earth, long before our recorded history invites both humility and inspiration, we are reminded that greatness has risen and disappeared before, and that nothing guarantees permanence. Our achievements, our monuments, and even our culture might one day fade, leaving future generations to wonder if we ever existed. Yet there is hope in this perspective. Recognizing the impermanence of civilization can motivate us to act with intention. If others have risen and vanished, then the legacy we leave matters more than ever. Could we craft a society resilient enough to endure? Could we pass knowledge, wisdom, and stewardship of our planet to future generations in ways that outlast our fleeting moment? In the sun, the potential for greatness becomes intertwined with responsibility. The more aware we are of the fragility of civilizations, the more deliberate we can be in shaping one that survives. Finally, this reflection challenges our perception of time itself. Human history, vast though it seems, is just a fragment of Earth's narrative. A civilization 100,000 years ago would occupy a space in a timeline nearly incomprehensible in scale. Recognizing this gives perspective to our achievements, our failures, and our place in the cosmos. We are not the first intelligence to rise, nor might we be the last. By understanding that possibility, we see ourselves as part of a continuum of creativity and exploration, a fleeting yet meaningful link in the chain of life on this planet. As we draw our journey through time to a close, we are reminded of the fragility and impermanence of civilizations. Imagine a world where forests reclaim streets, rivers erase boundaries, and wind and weather slowly dismantle even the most sophisticated structures. Over tens of thousands of years, nature becomes the ultimate archivist, reshaping and absorbing everything humans or any civilization create. In this context, the civilizations of the past, no matter how advanced, are as ephemeral as shadows in the mist. Perhaps one day, fragments of such civilizations may come to light hidden beneath layers of earth, embedded in DNA, or glimpsed in anomalous artifacts. Until that moment, we are left with speculation, imagination, and the awareness that history is far larger than we can perceive. The Earth's story is vast, spanning billions of years, and our own place within it is but a fleeting chapter. In contemplating the possibility of civilizations lost to deep time, we are invited to reflect on what legacy we are leaving behind. Will our own achievements endure, or will they fade, leaving future beings to wonder if we ever existed at all? This reflection also reshapes our perspective on progress. We often view our civilization as a continuous climb toward knowledge, culture, and technological mastery. Yet, if others have come before us and disappeared, the linear narrative of human advancement is challenged. Progress may be far more fragile than we imagine, dependent not just on innovation but on the balance of circumstances, environment, and resilience. This awareness calls for humility and caution and understanding that our place in history is not guaranteed, and that the achievements we take for granted could vanish if that balance is disrupted. At the same time, considering civilizations that have arisen and fallen fosters a sense of connectedness. We are not a solitary spark of intelligence in a void, but part of a pattern, a lineage of creativity and consciousness that stretches across deep time. Perhaps intelligence itself is a recurring phenomenon on Earth, a light that flares, fades, and returns. Imagining this deep past encourages us to broaden our vision of what is possible, both for the future of humanity and for the potential emergence of new civilizations. Long after we are gone, there is also a quiet beauty in the unknown, the unanswered questions, the possibilities that stretch beyond our current understanding. Invite curiosity and wonder. What did those civilizations look like? How did they think, create, and live? Which technologies, knowledge, or philosophies might have been lost forever? Each unanswered question is a reminder that history is not fixed. It is a mosaic of fragments, interpretations, and imagination. Ultimately, reflecting on civilizations that may have existed 100,000 years ago is not only an exploration of the past, it is a meditation on our present and future. We are encouraged to live with awareness of the fleeting nature of existence, to treasure knowledge, and to act with responsibility toward the planet and generations to come. If past societies could rise, thrive, and vanish, so too could we. But in that same reflection lies an opportunity to build something enduring, to learn from the patterns of history, and to ensure that our own chapter in Earth's story is remembered. So, as we close our eyes and imagine the vast stretches of time, let us carry a sense of wonder, humility, and purpose. Perhaps one day, evidence will emerge of a chapter of Earth's story we never imagined, a civilization that walked, thought, and dreamed long before us. Until then, the possibility itself is enough to remind us of the mysteries that surround us, the potential within us, and the fleeting yet precious nature of every civilization that graces this planet.